This is the last video we made in this series of explanation, and this video will explain why we chose the data set that we chose and just how we organized the whole thing. It should be noted that we created this entire system from the viewpoint of the outgoings, so because they will be the ones who will be searching for the camps in the end, so it would make it a lot easier for them, of course, if we incomings all use the same system. So therefore the most important thing, and I gladly repeat this 100 times, is that we all pay attention to the codes. Optimally, there should be no different codes, so that the filtering is just easier, meaning that when we start to use different codes that the system doesn't recognize, the filtering will be more difficult for the outgoings. Whereas when we all use the same codes that the system knows, the filtering will be much easier. Of course, if you notice that there are some codes missing, please just let us know. Just send us an email. The email address has been mentioned a couple of times by now, and just tell us which codes are missing and we will add them. For example, if there was a country missing, we couldn't just say the camp is in a different country. We would need to fix that and just add the code so that it's correct in the end. So let's continue to the data types we have. So for example, we have the date here, and obviously you know that already. In the columns last update, that is here. In there we have a date as well, and obviously also in the start date and end date, it's the type date as well. We haven't determined a fixed scheme for the dates. Why? Because we believe that it depends on the operating system that somebody's using to open these documents. So we use the Spanish system, write a date like this, but it might be that somebody from a different country with a different system writes it differently. Often it's the month first, then the day, then the year. So next, let's look at the data set that are in the form of text. So all these data here contain text. As I said, we ask you to consider the system. So when you click here, the list unfolds, and it works after the following scheme. So you have the space, the code, and the dash. And then you can add more with, again, a space, a code, and a dash. Why? Simply because the program can read it better this way. And the search function will also work better later on. So if you do it like this, it will be greatly appreciated. Then there's also such a selection box here, and you just select one dash and that's it, no problem. And from this multiple selection columns, we also have no more from, reserved, and work. And don't worry when the system says selection invalid. That can happen when there's more than one code in a box, but when you're sure that those are the codes you need to describe the camp, that should be fine. Then there are also the boxes for numbers. In these you should only insert numbers. And then there's also a special box, sex indifferent, which means that you don't care whether the volunteers are men or women. So it could be, for example, that you have 12 places and specifically want 1 man and 2 women. But for the rest, it doesn't matter. So then you need to put 2 here, where men are, and then 1 here, and then 9 here into the sex indifferent. With time, the places should fill up, and the logical conclusion is that the number of the places that are already taken plus the number of available places for men, women, and sex indifferent together make up the total number of available places that you have in the camp. So it's logical. It's just the number of taken places plus the 3 number of available places make up the total number of places. Then we have other boxes where you have to make a decision and have to decide between yes and no. For example, click on the columns cancelled or full, and then the selection will open and you just select. Okay? After some time, when this all works well, I will provide another filter so that the camps that are already full or cancel won't appear at all anymore. And then we also have another column that is called remarks, and here you can simply write whatever you think is important. You can also add that later on. You don't have to do it right away. Important is, however, that you keep it short, because with some applications this has caused problems when the message is longer than 250 symbols. Next, let's look at the boxes that have to do with the meridians and latitudes of the map which you've seen before. Here it's important that the decimal place is separated by a dot instead of a comma. So please do it like this. First the whole number, and then a dot, and then the decimal place. Lastly, we have added a few things that we think could be very interesting. With services, for example, we will add a selection with things that you mention to us that could be interesting for the outgoings. So questions that they often might ask us, for example, like, is there Wi-Fi at the camp? Or also, is there a laundry machine? So that they know how much laundry they should take, for example. To us, it also seems interesting to have the possibility to look according to world region or habitat, if we don't want to look for a specific country, but for a region or zone, we can do that with the filter world region. And then habitat would be the immediate environment, like, is the camp happening in the mountains or at the sea or in a city? We would really appreciate your feedback on this aspect as well. Of course, we can add more columns or delete some if you think that they're not important. Another thing I don't want to forget is in the column reserved, where you can reserve places for your own organization. Here as well, it could be that you want to reserve more than one place, and then the selection works via countries. So me as a Spanish organization would have to put in the following format. It's ESP for Spain, and then comma, space, and then ESP again. And then I will have reserved 2 places, and then all the other organizations will know, all the other Spanish organizations will know that they can't send any more.